tomorrow what's going to happen in this combat role?
Well, since the beginning, we've been calling on the Prime Minister and the government to give full information to Parliament, and they've not done that so far. The fact that they would choose a Friday when they know that there are very few present in the House shows a lack of respect, frankly, for elected officials in our country.
How?
Well, don't forget, Parliament sits from Monday to Thursday, although there is a short session on Fridays. Most are not there. Well, of course, I'll make it my business to be there, but I do find it very unusual that the Prime Minister would give that information on Friday. If the Prime Minister actually wanted members of Parliament to have that information, he could have given it today or yesterday when everyone was here. He knows that Friday is a very short day. I'll make it my business to be here on Friday, but I find it unusual that the Prime Minister would choose a Friday to make that sort of important announcement.
Have you been briefed yet by the PM, and is this different than other times?
No, on other missions I have been briefed and spoken directly with the Prime Minister. This time around, no. He has not sought out a meeting, nor has he offered any information to me.
What are you... Sorry, Louise.
I was just going to say, are you concerned about the overall way this timeline's rolling out in terms of the announcement tomorrow? Is there a potential in your mind that the deployment could have started before the debate even takes place?
Let's go back through the history of this sort of deployment over the past generation. Early 90s, first Gulf War, the discussion and debate was taking place over the Christmas holidays. Parliamentary committee was brought in, full information was provided by senior ministers, all parties were allowed to ask questions and they got full answers. That's the way to do it. This time around it's quite clear that we're dealing with politics more than anything else. We had an emergency debate, Mr. Harper didn't even show up. Ironically, the Liberals who asked for that debate didn't even show up either, their leader stayed home. So right now the only party that's been pushing hard and asking questions is the NDP. Historically, we have been in favor of some missions. We were in favor of the first phase of the bombing in Libya because it was under a United Nations mandate, the duty to protect. We removed that permission, or at least that agreement later on, because it morphed into a campaign to get rid of Gaddafi, and we said, you don't know what he's going to be replaced with. Looks like we might have been right historically to ask that sort of tough question. So we're going to keep asking the tough questions. We're still not getting any answers, of course, from Stephen Harper, but that's the way he does politics generally. On issues of national importance, and there is nothing more important about the life of our country than asking whether or not we're going to tell young Canadians to go into war. There's nothing more important than a determination as to whether or not we participate in a war. And Mr. Harper's playing a political game. He's not providing information to Canadians. He's not providing information to Parliament. He promised a vote. Well, for weeks now, he's been putting things in place. There's been no discussion, no debate. Now they say there's going to be a vote, but it's going to be a fait accompli. So there's no real consultation. That's quite clear. He's already rolling out military equipment. Radio Can is reporting that the tankers, the planes, the refueling planes are already being prepared. So it's quite clear that Mr. Harper is on his way. The only problem is, of course, Canadians haven't been informed and Parliament hasn't been consulted.
So your thoughts on that it's almost like you mentioned a fait accompli.
Yeah, there's no question, that the government has decided that it's going to be involved militarily. And we're saying, there are a lot of people involved in this coalition. Not all countries are involved militarily. What's the best way for Canada to be acting? The answer we often get is the Americans are doing something different. Well, that's fine, but the U.S. is not the UN. This is not a UN mission. It's not a NATO mission. And Canadians should have full information before we plunge headlong into another war. Everything that's taking place before our eyes, all the horrors that we're seeing now, and they are real horrors, is the direct result of the war in 2003. That was a wrong-headed war that Canada correctly stayed out of. It was led by the Americans and the British. And so before we decide that more war is the solution, let's have a full proper debate and let's decide together. Unfortunately, Stephen Harper, when he was in New York, tipped his hand. He talked in the first person singular. I will have to decide. Well, that's the way Stephen Harper operates. He doesn't even consult his government and his cabinet, much less the opposition parties. Canadians deserve better, and under an NDP government, they would get better.
When you stand up and vote next week on this, are you concerned that the jets will already be in the air?
Look, there's no question that Mr. Harper's mind's already been made up, so any consultation at this stage of the game, frankly, will be phony. He has no intention of providing information. He hasn't even sought me out to talk to me, as he's done in the past. There are other missions where I've had a chance to talk to him. He hasn't spoken to me once since the beginning of this. So what we're seeing, unfortunately, is instead of respecting our brave women and men in uniform and understanding that there's nothing more important in the life of a country than deciding whether or not you go to war, well, he's not even respecting elected officials. He's not even respecting Canadians on this thing. He's just pushing headlong into another war to supposedly correct the errors from the last war that we correctly stayed out of. So we're going to see what else is going to be put on the table. We'll look at it, but Mr. Harper hasn't made the case for war as being the only solution. Anything but.
And is there a concern that yesterday we found out from you guys that it was, you pushed, and it was 26 Canadian forces on the ground, not the 69 that they really kind of led everyone to think?
Well, it took 4 questions from me to Stephen Harper to finally get a number, which was 69. And then one of his other ministers, John Baird, said, well, it's not 69, it's 26. And he tried to pretend, oh, well, we were always just saying it was up to 69. Go back to his answers. That's not what he said. So they always try to change history within 2 weeks as if people can't go back to the tape and find out that they're not telling the truth.
And does that concern you going forward?
Well, no question that the fog of war often hides the truth, or the old expression is that the truth is often the first victim of war. But Canadians deserve better than that. This is a serious decision about whether or not we put brave women and men in uniform in harm's way. And, when I look at the way our veterans are being treated after Afghanistan, shutting down 9 veterans' offices, for example, we're not even taking care of the people who served so bravely in Afghanistan. Before we start putting people in harm's way here, let's have a full debate and make sure that we're going to be able to take care of them when the time comes.